Today I'm joined by Kikkan Randall. Five-time Olympian, competed in the 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014 and 2018 Olympics. Olympic champion 2018. World champion in cross-country skiing representing the US. You are also the first woman to win a world championships and Olympic medal in cross-country skiing, right?
Yeah, for the US, yes.
For the US. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that. And you are a cancer survivor. Welcome, Kikkan.
Thanks for having me.
Kikkan, your nickname, Kikkanimal, where does it come from?
My teammates back in high school gave it to me because we would be at running practice or ski practice, and I would always be encouraging them to work hard, do one more interval, like do it together as a team. And they just said, gosh, you're such an animal. And so then we figured out that it kind of played right off my name.
Okay, cool. And your name Kikkan is also very special. I thought it's similar to Shaquille. You just need to say the first name and everyone knows who's talked about.
Yeah, exactly. It's been really fun to have a unique name growing up, and there was some ski history tied with, there was a woman, US ski racer in the 1960s named Kiki Cutter. She was an alpine skier, but she was the first American to win a World Cup in alpine. And so kind of knowing my name was inspired by that, maybe encouraged me a little bit later on when I was going after my own records.
Really cool. How did you get into cross-country skiing?
I was really lucky to come into a family that loved to be outside and loved to do skiing of all kinds. My mom's side of the family was a bit more of the cross country. My aunt and uncle went to the Olympics in cross country skiing. My dad came from more of the alpine side, so he actually had me on alpine skis the day after my first birthday.
Okay, cool. In your athletic life, what was your darkest moment?
I think I had a blood clot in 2008, and it came after my first World Cup win. So I went from being this invincible athlete to suddenly facing a medical challenge that could have ended my ability to be an athlete for the rest of my life. And that was very scary to almost have that taken away.
How did you recover from that?
I was fortunate to have the right medical advice, who could appreciate who I was, not just as the average patient, but as someone who was very active and athletic. And they went in and actively removed the blood clot in my leg. And then I set some challenging goals for myself, a medal at the World Championships, which had never been achieved by an American woman. And that's what kept getting me out the door every day. And it was a tough process. There were many days when I felt that goal was unreachable. But I was so happy to be able to be out there training, no matter what the weather, no matter how hard it was. And I ultimately reached my goal and won a silver medal at the World Championships. And that was an incredible way to come back.
Okay. And you said 2008, and you competed at the 2010 Olympic Games. So how did that go? I mean, how long did it take to recover and until you were able to participate in qualifying for the Olympics?
Yeah, again, I was fortunate. I had my blood clot in the spring. It happened in the end of March, which is typically when cross-country skiers take a bit of a break from training anyway. So I was able to use my recovery time to kind of build back strength. And by the start of the new training season in May, I was able to join my teammates and start building back into training. So I came into that season in 2009 fully prepared. And that season proved that with that medal at World Championships that I was kind of on track for my goals at the 2010 Olympics. And by that point, I was about 10 years into my professional ski career. And I noticed that that's when things really started to take off for me. I'd finally built up the right amount of experience and training to compete at the top level.
Yeah. And I've taken a note, you were a favorite for the Olympic title in 2014. And then what happened?
Well, that was an incredible opportunity. Like I said, when my career started, no American woman had ever been even close to being considered a medal contender. And so to come into those Olympics as the gold medal favorite, I had won the pre-Olympic race on that course. I had won several of the World Cup sprint races leading in. Everything pointed to the right direction. I was ready. But ultimately, it came down to 5/100ths of a second in the quarterfinal. I lost a photo finish, and that was the end of my chance to go for a medal. So it was a little devastating to miss out on that chance because we have techniques that flip-flop each Olympics. So I wouldn't be getting another opportunity in that particular event for 8 more years, which I knew, I was already kind of towards the end of my career. I knew 8 more years was probably not possible. So I wouldn't necessarily have that individual chance for a medal, but it motivated me to put more effort into our team chances to go for a medal. And that's when we won the gold medal in 2018 in the team event.
And just to put it into relation, how long is the event where you missed by 5/100ths of a second?
I think the race was around 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay.
So it's a very fast paced, and I was leading the race with about 100 meters to go. There were a few things that didn't quite click that day. We didn't get the skis quite right, and I had burned a lot of energy early in the race to be in the lead. And when it came down to that last 100 meters, I just didn't quite have the gears I needed to stay out front.
What was your best moment?
I think all of my favorite moments from my ski career come around our breakthroughs in the team events. So there was this World Cup race in northern Sweden in 2012. We ended up winning a photo finish to get the bronze medal in a 4-person relay. But if you'd seen our celebration in the finish, you would have thought we'd won the race. It was just so cool to finally get the 4-person team event onto the podium. So that's a favorite memory. Also, when Jessie Diggins and I won the gold medal at the World Championships in 2013, our first big breakthrough in the team sprint for the United States was also just incredible. To be able to share a big moment like that with a teammate is so much more powerful than any individual success I've ever had.
Yeah, I believe that. If you could travel back in time, 10, 15, 20 years, what advice would you give a younger Kikkan?
There's not a whole lot about the way I approached my career that I would change, because I think there was a lot of value in having to learn some things the hard way. Really kind of build a lot of resilience, a lot of grit, a lot of gratitude for ultimately what I was able to achieve. But it is a pretty incredible lifestyle that you get to live. And I would go back and tell myself to soak in every single moment, because it's easy to always be thinking about the future and always be like, oh, I have to get through this workout. It's raining outside, kind of picking out the things that are not so positive. And I think just to slow down and really enjoy the process to really soak it in.
Talking about the younger Kikkan, I saw you were born on December 31st. So, which means you are the youngest, literally, of your age group. We know these days that the younger you are in age groups, only a few months can make a big difference, right? So you were the youngest of the youngest. How was that?
Well, the benefit was I got to always have fireworks on my birthday. It's the December 31st. Everyone's generally in a good mood. They're celebrating, and that's always been fun. But it was a bit of a disadvantage in my age group. However, I think that it also helped me build some grit, knowing I was always going up against other girls that were a little bit older than me. I missed out on an opportunity, I think, to compete at the World Juniors one more season. And I think that would have been really interesting to see if I could have made some better results at that level. But once I graduated out of that age group, I was focused more on my developing my results as a senior. So it's amazing how a few hours could have made a huge difference, but maybe it also had some upsides.
Yeah. And you mentioned the word grit, and I've heard previous interviews of you, that word always comes back. How much do you think, and it's very hypothetical, how much do you think is nature and how much is nurture?
That is a great question. I think there were definitely some nature things in me that have contributed to my personality. My parents have this story of putting me down in the grass when I was just learning to crawl. And there was a playground about 50 meters away. And they put me down in the grass, and I just started crawling towards the playground. And they expected me to get halfway there and turn around and look to see where my parents were. And I didn't turn around once. I kept going to that playground. So I've always seemed to, when I see something I want, I go after it with a lot of focus. However, I've been fortunate to grow up in an amazing family. I was fortunate to have some amazing coaches and role models growing up. To grow up in a place like Alaska, where we have lots of snow and a really supportive community, I think allowed me to focus on skiing long enough to really break through. So it's been definitely a bit of a combination. And I have two other siblings, and we are all totally different. My brother is an incredible artist. My sister is really theatrical. She's in the theater business. So that's where the nature really took different routes, even though we kind of grew up in the same environment.
Cool. After your first Olympic Games, you sat down with your coach and you mapped out a plan how to become an Olympic medalist. And the result was a 10-year plan. What was on that plan? How did it look like?
Yeah, so I got super inspired at my first Olympics, especially when I saw Becky Scott from the Canadian team finish on the podium, which was the first North American woman to ever win an Olympic medal. So, being from the same continent, I felt like if she could do it, I could do it. And so when I left those Olympics, I sat down and I said, well, I finished 44th place. How am I ever going to get to being a medal contender? And we figured out, well, if you're going to be a medal contender at the Olympics, you got to contend for medals at the World Championships and then World Cup. And then, you just broke it down until you had all these steps. Well, after we broke it down, it was going to take 10 years. And at 19 years old, that was really hard to wrap my mind around that amount of time. But I could see the process. And I was young and ambitious, and I figured I was going to get there way faster because I was going to work extra hard. But it really did take that process of having these intermediate goals to keep you focused, to give you measurement that you're making progress. And then those years, it's amazing. You're focused on one season at a time, but it builds like a pyramid. And it kind of felt like all of a sudden 10 years had gone by and I had built myself into an international competitor. I saw the same thing happen when I went through cancer treatment. When you're going to those first appointments, they're telling you, you've got to do chemotherapy and surgery and radiation. And it's like this huge, scary thing. And so what I did is I took that and I broke it down until I literally had a goal every single day. And every day I completed, I put a big X on the calendar, and it made me feel like I was making progress. So I found that that's a really important skill, whether we're tackling something challenging like a goal or whether we're faced with an obstacle or a setback.
And then I think Eisenhower said, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. So if things, you map out a plan and you don't hit the targets in between, how do you stay on track? How do you continue to believe that the plan will work out?
That is a great point, because if you look at that 10-year plan, when I laid it out, it was this nice stair step. It was this line that was going to go straight to the top. But if I went back and mapped out the points of what actually happened, it's very much a roller coaster. And there was a couple of key points where I felt like I was not going to reach my goal. In 2005, so about 3 years into this process, I finished dead last at the World Championships. And our women's team actually got pulled out of the relay because they're going to be lapped. That next season, they cut the entire women's program. So I was starting to be like, man, I'm never going to get there. But I had an intermediate goal that I said, I want to see it through to that checkpoint. And then once I get to that checkpoint, then I can reevaluate. And I found that was really powerful because it kept me from quitting or giving up just shy of maybe a potential breakthrough. So, I think you always have to be good about looking at every performance or workout and saying, okay, where did it measure? And then what can I learn? What can I do better? And I think I just got really good at finding success in small places, even if the result on the result sheet didn't look very good. I might have been closer to the winner, or I might have figured out a technique breakthrough. And so I just got really good at seeing how those little things were going to come together and giving myself a little bit of patience to meet that next goal.
What are the habits that make you a successful athlete and person? We talked about grit. What else?
I think I approach things with a lot of optimism. I've gotten really good at recognizing that when things feel stressful, hopeless, frustrating, I kind of try to take a deep breath, take a step back, and really look at things and go, what can I control? and what can I not control? And our minds want to focus on the things that we can't control. It wants to focus on the negative. But thinking and just getting pulled down by those doesn't get you anywhere because you can't do anything about it. But if you focus on the things that you can control, even if it's a super small thing, like, you know what, I can get up and I can go for a walk around the block today. It's not a 3-hour workout, but it's something. And maybe those little things build up and start to get me back to where I want to go. So I think being able to just kind of catch those thoughts and reframe back onto things that actually push me forward have been super helpful. I've also always gotten a lot of sleep, and I know that makes a big difference. I've noticed right now, since I don't get to nap every day like I did when I was a full-time athlete, I tend to get busy with computer work and I'm like pushing all day and maybe I don't get a workout in. After a couple of days, if I let my sleep at night get too short, then I start to get less productive. I get overwhelmed, and it's amazing if I can just catch up on sleep. All of a sudden, I'm back into a place where I'm energetic and I'm ready to go forward.
Just give us a ballpark number. What is a lot of sleep?
I found, to me, my threshold, I think, is 8.5 hours. I get less than that. Like, I can survive on 8 or 7.5, but if it's too many days in a row, I start to see a negative impact. If I really had no limitations, I'd love to get 9 or 10 hours a night. And every so often I try to build that in to let myself have some nights like that to catch up. If you sleep more, there's less time to be productive for sure. But I find that it's the quality over the quantity. So if I get the sleep, the time I have to work, I get a lot more done.
Yeah. And there are these numbers out there that apparently these high achievers like LeBron James and Roger Federer, they sleep 12 hours a day. So which is half the day. But yeah, well, they do perform.
Exactly. I think, everybody's a little bit different. I was a big napper when I was an athlete. So I was getting 10, 11, 12 hours of sleep a day between at night and naps. But I had some teammates who they just couldn't nap during the day. It just wasn't possible. And they got 8 hours a day and they were still incredibly successful. So you just kind of got to find it. But I think as a society, we tend to push ourselves a little too much and cut the sleep back. And I don't think that's healthy, or it doesn't make life as exciting as it can be.
Yeah, I do believe that as well. Talking about sleep, do you have a morning routine?
I am definitely a morning person. I love, like once that alarm goes off, or if I just kind of wake up, I'm ready to spring out of bed. I'm a coffee lover, so I love to have that first cup of coffee. This summer, I actually got in a really good routine of getting out for a workout early. And, like when the alarm went off, it was always like, oh, I don't know if I want to get up. But then once I got out there, like 2 minutes into it, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. And I love it. And so I really try to make workouts a priority in the morning if I absolutely can, because I just feel like it gives me benefits for the rest of the day.
Yeah. How do you prepare yourself for important moments?
I think the biggest key that I've learned is, if you do the preparation, then you can go into just about anything confident and ready to give it your best. So in skiing, that was the years of training. That was the months of training leading into a season. Like if you could show up on the start line and you were never satisfied, there's always that little bit in your mind of like, oh, I could have done a little bit more. But the reason why we train so much is to prepare ourselves. And now if I'm doing a speaking engagement or a presentation or schoolwork, having done the daily tasks to kind of get ready for something makes me so much more successful and makes me enjoy the process more. If I ever jump into something without the preparation, I'm just never quite as good as I could be. And I know that. So to me, the effort you give and that preparation is the most satisfying thing. More important than, any of the medals or awards or anything. Because it's just such a satisfying feeling to know you've done it right.
Yeah. And at these 2018 Olympic Games where you became Olympic champion, I heard you were selected for the team sprint only 3 days out. So how is it the uncertainty going into the event, whether you didn't know you will compete or not? But then you have 3 days of preparation for the actual event. How was that?
It was definitely nerve-wracking. So our team had decided that the team sprint event was going to be a major focus of our entire team for the 4 years leading into those games. So for 4 years, I had been thinking about that team, preparing myself to be on that team, but my teammates were as well. And we knew that because the level of our entire team had risen, it was going to be really hard to pick which two of us would be on that team. So we talked about, that being difficult and how everybody was going to give it their best. We knew everybody wanted to be on that team, but if for some reason you weren't selected that day, you could still feel supportive and part of any success that happened. So leading 6 weeks before the Pyeongchang Games, I got a stress fracture in my foot, which completely changed the preparation I had planned to do. So I was coming into the Olympics very unsure of my level of performance. And my teammates were all skiing very fast. So I was nervous that I maybe wouldn't get selected for that team. So I was doing everything in my power to prepare to be on that team, but I was also preparing myself to not be selected and to know that I would be on the sidelines cheering and supporting my teammates however I possibly could. When I did get the call that I was going to be on the team, it was actually only 48 hours before the event. So 2 days before. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was in the room with one of my teammates. The coach told us that they were picking me. And inside, I am just like so excited, like pistols blaring. And my teammate has just heard the opposite news that she's not selected. And she turned to me and she said, I believe in you as much as I believe in myself. What can I do to help? And that was the most powerful moment of team spirit I have ever seen. And so amazing to see her do that. And I think it was the years of prep work we had all done. So when Jessie and I did win the gold medal and everybody was there to celebrate, I think it was so satisfying because we knew it wasn't just about the two of us. It was about all the effort that all of my teammates and coaches and everybody had put into that moment.
Yeah, really cool. How do you overcome setbacks?
Again, I think it goes back to, approaching it with a little bit of optimism to say, okay, this is a setback, but there's no reason I can't get over this and get back to doing what I want to do. So while I'm working my way back, what things can I do to set myself up to get back to where I want to go? So in the case of an injury, when I was ski racing, when I got that stress fracture in my foot, they said, okay, no skiing, no running. So then I had to go, okay, but I can be in the water. I can aqua jog. I can be on the bike. I can work my upper body. And it wasn't always fun. And I definitely missed the fact that I couldn't do those other things. But because I focused on what I could do, I kept my fitness. In some ways, I think actually improved some weaknesses that I wouldn't have worked on had things gone perfectly well. So I think giving your mind little things to focus on, and most importantly, give yourself little successes. Like if you do those little things every day, you got to kind of celebrate those little successes because I really believe those build up, those keep you motivated. And then I was always surprised what it turned into. I had some of my best performances after a setback. And so then once I started to realize that was happening, every time I encountered a new setback, I try to remind myself, well, maybe there's something waiting for me on the other side that's going to be even bigger and better than I can imagine right now. So I think it's all about the mindset.
Yeah. And in 2018, after the Olympics, you were at the highs of all highs. And then a few months later, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. And you had a young kid.
Yeah, talk about the ultimate high to the ultimate low. I mean, I was really fortunate to notice this small pea-sized lump on my chest that would have been super easy to miss because, I felt incredibly strong, energetic, and fine. But thankfully, I knew my body well, knew to go get it checked just in case. And when I did get the call that it was actually cancer and aggressive cancer, I went through like all those stages of just shock, disbelief, frustration, like, wait a second, I've done all the right things. How could this be happening? But again, I think that athlete frame of mind kicked in and I started to go, okay, well, this is real and this has happened, but I'm going to use all these same skills that I used for chasing that gold medal to get through this. I'm going to take this big, scary thing and I'm going to break it into things that I can manage day to day. I'm going to need a team more than ever. And I noticed that while the initial reaction was, I'm going to keep this to myself, I'm going to have to deal with this on my own, I realized that that was going to be much harder. So I decided to be open about it and to be okay with asking for help, be okay with being vulnerable. And then the last part was, you know what, there are a lot of scary statistics and this is really emotionally intense, but I'm going to choose to say that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to have the life I want. I'm going to be around for my son. And I just really tried to keep that positivity at the forefront. And that turned into wearing these rainbow colored shoes to my doctor's appointments. So that in those moments when I was feeling a little bit hopeless, I could look down at my feet and remind myself to stay positive and look forward. And then that turned into an idea to come out with some really brightly colored socks that say it's going to be okay, that we started selling on my website as a way to inspire other people going through tough challenges. And that's been a really cool, I think silver lining out of having gone through this experience myself is how I can take these things that I've learned and help other people.
Yeah, that's really cool. Who's your role model and why?
I have so many incredible role models, but in my family, I have an aunt who went to the Olympics in 1980 as a cross-country skier. She actually still has the mile record on the track in Alaska for high school students. I tried to beat her record. I couldn't quite get there. Beyond being an Olympian, she is a senior executive in a big company, but very active in the nonprofit world, sitting on boards. And so I've always looked to her as just someone who was both had the performance, but has also segued her athletics into a successful business career and is community minded. And I think having someone like that so close to me and my family was really powerful and just kind of helping me feel that whatever I could dream up was possible, but to always remember that, with that success comes an opportunity to give back.
Cool. What is the best advice you received and who gave it to you?
I think it boils down to never give up. And it was something my dad repeated to me a lot. It was something my parents really instilled in me growing up. As a kid, you get into something and then you're like, oh, this is hard. I don't want to do it. And they would just kind of remind me you've committed to this, you need to see it through. And then once you see through that commitment, you can always then change direction. And I think that idea of just when it gets hard, don't give up, has really come in handy in so many things. It definitely kept me motivated in skiing. It helped me through cancer on those tough days when you're just like, it's too much, I can't do it. And you're like, no, I can't give up. I've got to keep fighting. A few simple words, but so powerful.
Yeah. You mentioned you guys, the cross-country skiers, you train a lot. How did a typical training day look like?
It was training a lot, but it was also really fun because it's a lot of really interesting training. In most cases, we're outside. So our training year would start in May, and up in Alaska, we could usually find snow in the mountains, which was a great way to kind of start the new season on skis. We did a lot of running. We do strength training. Our sport is actually quite power based and there's a speed component as well. So we did explosive Olympic lifts in the weight room. Cycling was really good for building muscle and fitness. So a typical day for me would be probably get up around 7, give myself an hour to have a healthy breakfast, get all my gear ready. I would meet my team to train around 8:30. We would train for 2 to 3 hours, whether that was roller skiing or intervals or, whatever's on the plan that day. Finish training, have a recovery snack, usually work on some body work, whether it was massage or stretching, come back, have a lunch, nap, wake up, eat, go out and do another second session, usually in an hour and a half range. And then, have a nice dinner and then try to get to bed at a decent time. And training twice a day, generally 6 days a week. Seventh day of the week was always that kind of recovery measure. if you felt good, you'd go do something easy. If you needed a day off, you'd take that. And we did that pretty much week in and week out from the beginning of May all the way through the beginning of November. And that was all to build up like this incredible credit of training that then when you started racing, you had a big base to draw from. And I found that was doing that. It's a long prep season. It dominates your life. Like, you have to make decisions around rest and recovery, and you can't always go do fun family things or vacations or stay out late. But all of that builds up, and when you get into the race season and you feel strong, it's all worth it.
Yeah, I believe that. You share your inspirational story with people at the moment. What else is going on in your life?
Well, I'd always heard about the challenge of transitioning after your professional sports career into, what's next. And for me, it's been 2 years since I finished racing officially. With cancer happening so quickly after I retired, that took a lot of my attention for the first year. But in this past year, I've been kind of figuring out how can I take all this amazing experience and this platform I have built up from my ski racing and come take that forward and help impact people and do things that make me, light me up like my ski goals did. So I've done a bunch of motivational speaking, which has been really, really fun. I do it both kind of on the sports side, but then in the cancer world, I've also had some incredible opportunities. I'm working on a book project to kind of share my story and these lessons I've learned. Hope to come out with that next summer. A few hours after we won the gold medal, I also learned that I was elected to the International Olympic Committee as a representative for athletes. So being an athlete representative at the IOC level has expanded into a few different opportunities. And then I do work within our US Olympic and Paralympic Committee and in the ski world as well. So I would say about 50% of my time is geared towards the athlete representation and kind of working in that sports business world. And then the other 50% is, again, kind of speaking and being a role model and having an impact. And then this year I decided actually to go back to school. And I'm also working on developing my skills as an accountant, because I think that might be some fun way to bring a lot of this experience together into a career in the future.
Really cool. With so many things on your plate, I'm not surprised that you don't get enough sleep. Do you want to nominate someone to be interviewed?
I'm such a big fan of sports, and every athlete has a different story. Now that I've stepped into my IOC role, I of course get to see stories beyond just my sport of cross country skiing, and so getting to know some of the summer athletes. I think those athletes that are training for Tokyo right now have been facing enormous challenges, but have also shown amazing resilience. So I would just love to hear some stories of some athletes as they prepare for what's going to be probably one of the most unique Olympic Games in history, starting hopefully next year.
Hopefully, yeah. Where can people find you?
Well, as we said, Kikkan is a pretty unique name. So Kikkan.com is always a great place to start. I'm Kikkanimal on Instagram and Twitter, and Kikkan Randall on Facebook. And I would love to have you follow along on all my journeys.
Awesome. Kikkan, thanks a lot for your time. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Great questions. Fun to have a conversation with you.